Okay, well, let's try this again and see if I can maybe get through this video without having a massive coughing fit. That was fun. So, anyway, my second attempt at recording this little video. I just got in Invincible Ultimate Collection Volume 11. Invincible is a series that I've been reading for some time, and I have fallen off on, I will admit. I made it through Volume 7, and I've been meaning to get back into it and finish it. But I realized as the series is over, there are 12 volumes, and I only had the first 10, so I'm going to try to acquire Volume 12 coming up so I can have the complete series. Excuse me. Drink. What am I drinking? I've got a Blueberry Sparkler American Sour from Lone Pine in Portland, Maine. I believe this was a beer gift from my brother to my wife, but there's more than one in the fridge, and I decided to try it out, and it's quite tasty. Excuse me. So pardon me to both of you for jumping in and taking the beer, but I wanted it, and I was having a coughing fit, and I decided this would help. It is pretty good. All right. Anyway, I never really cared for superheroes. Wasn't my bag. Even as a kid, a lot of my contemporaries, they love the Superman movies with Christopher Reeve. And I think that Christopher Reeve puts in an amazing performance in the Superman movies. That one shot that's sort of famous, where he is Clark Kent and he takes off his glasses and he stands up straight and he becomes Superman. That's so well done. He is so good and brings just some fantastic life to that character. But I didn't like those movies. I don't like the Donner cut. I didn't like the original cut. I don't like those movies. I think Gene Hackman is awful in them, and it's actually a reason why for a long time I wasn't a Gene Hackman fan. It was because I had seen him primarily in those movies, and I thought his performance was terrible. And to this day, I still think it's up there as one of the worst Lex Luthors ever put on screen, up there with basically Jesse Eisenberg, who is the only other person I can think of that I just genuinely could not stand watching them on screen in that role. Anyway, long story long, I didn't get into superheroes. Didn't like the X-Men, tried reading them. Nope, no thank you. Tried reading a bunch of different superheroes over the time because people kept trying to convince me that I did enjoy them. Never did. So, fast forward a bunch, I'm starting to get back into comics. A friend of mine, Dan, he turns me on to Hellboy, Meta Barons, some other different sort of comic books, because he understood where my interests were. Less spandex and superpowers and more pulps and science fiction and that sort of thing. And I start reading The Walking Dead. Now, when The Walking Dead came out, there was not a lot of zombie stuff out there. As a fan of zombies, you had to dig to find anything. You had to dig to find movies. You had to dig to find any kind of literature. And there just wasn't a lot out there. And you were finding stuff that was, you would take and look over 30 or 40 years of material to find things. It's like, oh, I found this zombie movie that's new to me. It's from 30 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever. Or I found this one comic strip from the 80s that I tracked down. That was how you could find it. So The Walking Dead comes out as the zombie craze is starting to really explode. There had been a couple of movies that have been successful, blah, 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 and all of a sudden this comic book series came out. And the comic book series at the time hit so perfect. I was reading it and I was loving it. Now, I went back and tried to reread it, didn't care for it at all. The problems that developed later as the series went on are actually pretty evident right from the beginning. But whatever. At the time, it was great, and I was loving it. And because of that, I finally gave Invincible a try. I'd seen it on the shelves. I was working in a bookstore. Didn't think too much about it. But I decided, what the heck? I'm enjoying Walking Dead so much. Several people I know like this Invincible series. I'll try it one more time with the superhero thing. Well, turns out I really enjoyed it. And I started, at the time, in the paperbacks, because I don't care for floppies. I've never liked floppies. It's another reason why I didn't get into comics for a long time, or didn't stay in comics, because buying and collecting floppies was extremely unpleasant. I never liked it. So I was getting paperbacks, the paperback, not graphic novels, but the collections. And I enjoyed each volume. And I remember I read the first volume, and then I think it's partway through the second volume, where this like dramatic turn happened. And all of a sudden you go from reading what feels kind of like this upbeat, kind of like modern take on a Spider-Man sort of story, and it takes it into this direction that is really kind of shocking, but fascinating. And from that point on, this series just really held me. And I remember when I switched, probably by the time the fourth volume came out, I decided to skip that, or maybe not came out, but the fourth volume was the one I was about to buy. I decided to stop buying them in those and decided to start buying them in these hardcovers. And I would buy the new hardcover as it came out for quite a while. And I remember getting each new one, when I would pick it up and start to read it, I would be so nervous because, like, I didn't want this to be the volume where one of my favorite characters died, and I knew it was gonna be. And, I was reading these at the height of, all the different, when TV really changed and all of a sudden people stopped being safe. When, like, the Firefly movie Serenity came out and you knew your main characters weren't safe. When the Game of Thrones started becoming a big thing, and all of a sudden, obviously Sean Bean, but even beyond Sean Bean, no character was safe. And reading this, it felt like no character was safe, and a few characters die off early on, and you really, there's some shocking twists, and like, oh. And so every volume I would pick it up both with excitement and with nervousness that my favorite character was going to get off. And then just stuff happened, life happened, and I really honestly got out of the habit of reading comics, and out of the habit certainly of buying comics, because I wasn't working at a bookstore anymore. And years later, I'm now worried about these going out of print, so I'm getting them. But I am up to volume 7. I'm going to try to get around to reading volume 8 soon. I'm going to have volume 12 hopefully coming in, and I'm going to try to manage to get through to the end of the series. I figure I'll do a quick little flip through. I have no idea where this comic is at this point, so I'm just going to show a couple of scenes. There might be some spoilers. I don't know, because I don't know what's happening. So, it's a series. I mean, it can get pretty violent. It's a series that really does get dark sometimes. But it also has like a sense of humor. I felt, this is me maybe projecting, but I felt with The Walking Dead, fairly soon into the run of the series, it felt like maybe Kirkman wasn't paying as much attention to it. Because I kept feeling, especially, by, I don't know, the 5th or 6th trade paperback, it really just started to feel real repetitive. I think it was right in there. It was sometime not too long after the whole prison sequence. And it just never felt like it gained its way, never found its way again. And I kept reading out of inertia for quite a while. And sadly, I kept buying out of inertia for even longer. I think I had purchased maybe the first 12 or 15 trade paperbacks, and I think I quit reading it by around the 10th. And I don't know, but Invincible always felt like he was paying attention, like he was focused on it, and really, this was the comic series I feel like he really cared about in a way that I don't necessarily think maybe I'm wrong, but it didn't feel like he cared so much about The Walking Dead as it went on. It just sort of went on out of inertia. And this series actually felt like he really cared. He put a lot of effort into it. The writing, I think, is really good. I think that Ryan Ottley's art, because he didn't start. It started, and I never remember, and I'm sorry, it's Corey, I think, something. I could never remember the initial artist's name, who actually co-created the characters. Yeah, Corey Walker. So it was Robert Kirkman and Corey Walker who co-created the series, and Corey Walker started doing the art early on. But then Ryan Ottley came in as the artist, and I think Ottley draws for the rest of the series. I think he does the main, I don't know if it's the penciler and inker on this one for some of it. And Corey Walker comes back sometimes, and there's other folks who work on it as colorists and letterers and inkers and all sorts of things. But I think generally speaking, a lot of the primary artwork is Ryan Ottley, and you can really see him develop a lot as an artist over the course of the series, at least as far as I've gone. From early on, it's maybe a little simplistic. It gets more and more intricate, more and more exciting and stuff as time goes on. But anyhow, blah blah. I'm just going to rant more, and this isn't a review because I haven't read it yet. But volume 11 of Invincible, I'm going to try to grab volume 12 soon so I can have the complete series, and I don't have to worry about it going out of print, and then I can actually finish reading a series. Won't that be lovely? One of the things I love about independent comics, stuff like Invincible, is that it can end. And that's a problem that I have with the big two, with Marvel and DC. A lot of times, unless they're a special one-off, something like I think, excellent, what is it, Superman, is it Man of Tomorrow? It's not Man of Tomorrow. All-Star Superman, I think is a phenomenal book. And it ends. It has a lot of callbacks to Superman's overall history, but it tells a self-contained story, and at the end of that story, it's over. And that is great. And I think it's why that stands apart as being great. For Batman, there's like The Long Halloween and the follow-up, the name of which I'll never remember off the top of my head. But those two volumes together, I think, make for a great story. And they really, if you just took the two of them, and I know they expanded a little bit more, but you can ignore that. The Catwoman When in Rome one was not very good. But whatever the name of the second one is, those two stories together make one really good, cohesive, solid story that you can read from start to end, and it's over. But the necessity of these main storylines having to continually pull back and go back to the status quo, I think just sucks the life out of reading them. As a prime example, I read Planet Hulk. Is that right? I think it was Planet Hulk. Whichever one was the first time where he gets tossed off into space and becomes a gladiator, and I think he's hanging with Beta Ray Bill or the Silver Surfer, or all kinds of crazy stuff going on. They lifted some of the storyline for Ragnarok. But anyway, I read that, and I really, really, really liked it right up until the end. And it's because it was telling this very cool story where it pulls the Hulk out, and it puts him down, and it tells this big, grand story of adventure, and all this cool stuff is happening. And then that last issue, that the studio came and said, listen, we need Hulk back, and we got to figure out how he's back on planet Earth with everything going. So, wrap this up. And the whole last issue just undoes everything you just read. Nothing that you read makes a bit of difference because we got to get back to the status quo. We got to get Hulk back to being Hulk the way everybody knows him, and as everybody's comfortable with him, and he just fits into everything else. And that's how these comics work. And if you like it, you like it. That's fine. That's on you. That's your business. Fine. But it drives me batty. I hate it. And so one of the things I liked about Invincible was that changes happen, and they mean something. And yeah, sometimes characters come back from the dead, but usually it's because there's a very good reason why that happens that makes internal sense. An immortal character turns out to be immortal. Imagine. A character with a bajillion clones turns out to have had a bajillion and one clones. Okay. But it's not just, it's not Jean Grey. She's alive. Let's tell the Dark Phoenix story again. Hey, Jean Grey, she's alive. Let's tell the Dark Phoenix story again. Hey, Jean Grey, she's alive. Let's tell the Dark Phoenix story again. Fudge, Ripple, come on. It's just terrible. And, let's see the origin of Batman again. Really? 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 again? It's terrible. It's terrible. It's bad writing, it's lazy, it's boring, it's repetitive, and I don't like it. And so, anyhow, I liked that Invincible doesn't do all of that. And as far as I know, Volume 12 ends Invincible. And again, as far as I know, that's it. That's the end. It's over. Starts at Volume 1, goes through Volume 12, tells a big epic story, and then it's over. And I like that. I think that having an ending helps to make things matter in a way that I don't think your ongoing comics can do. And maybe that's controversial. Maybe that's why I'm not a big comic guy. I like comics. I think it's a fantastic medium, but I don't enjoy reading a lot of stuff like DC's mainline work or Marvel's mainline work. It doesn't. It never feels like anything that happens makes any real difference, because next week a different author comes in who likes that character who just got killed, and now that character's back for reasons. Anyway, that's ranty. We'll see when Volume 12 comes in. Maybe I'll have a little bit more of a rant, and maybe by that point I'll have read Volume 9, although I don't know. I have something else I need to read coming right up. So that's it for me for now. Check out links below if you feel like it. The usual business, like and subscribe if you feel like it. Have you read Invincible? What did you think of it? Don't give me any spoilers, though, because, again, I'm only on, I think, Volume 7. I got to read the last few. I liked the animated series. I watched the first season, thought it was pretty good. Does some changes, but that's what you have to do when you're doing a series versus a comic versus a TV show. And I'm okay with that. And, yeah, that's it. Take care.